Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining. We're just going to give everyone a minute to come into the webinar and settle in. Okay. So hello, everyone. Thank you for joining MCAN's webinar with Maiku, Demystifying Sticker Price of Independent Colleges and Universities. I am Janicia Thompson, and let's see, we will move forward. So we just wanted to begin with some housekeeping things. As you know, this webinar is available for one sketch in college prep. And if you did not request a sketch when you registered, but you attended live, you can email the sketch at mycollegeaccess.org email that is on the screen. And sketches will be processed within 30 days. If after that 30-day mark you do not see the sketch in your account on MOEX, please email the same email address that is on the slide, and our staff who monitors this will be able to assist. Now, 1 second. Okay, here we go. So as well, in addition to this, the sketch credit is also available for the recording. If you are watching the recording of this webinar, you can still earn a sketch by completing the link that will be on our website, and the password for the quiz will be given at the end of the webinar. If you are watching this live, this is a reminder that you do not need to complete the quiz. Only those who are watching the recording need to complete the quiz for the sketch. So please keep this in mind that this recording will also only be available for a sketch until July 24th of this year. So now we will turn it over to our presenter, Colby. From Maiku, would you like to introduce yourself right quick?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Colby Cesaro. I'm the Vice President at Michigan Independent Colleges and Universities. We are the association of the private nonprofit four-year institutions in Michigan.
Great. So I will pause my screen and stop sharing. We will bring up another presentation, Colby's presentation.
Yeah.
And let's see, there's also the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen as well.
Great. Well, hi, everyone. I'm Colby. It's nice to be here today. It is a really nice day, and that is just exciting. It makes everyone feel very happy. So thank you all for having me and showing up to talk about demystifying sticker price at independent colleges. You'll hear me use the words independent and private interchangeably. They mean the same thing, basically. We are independent from the state or local governments because our institutions don't receive appropriations to operate. There's no operating funding or tax dollars coming to our schools to function. Sometimes they're private, just like a private business. So they mean the same thing, but essentially institutions that are not connected to any sort of government entity to operate is who we are. And our institutions are all offer baccalaureate degrees and above. Some of them do some certificates and a couple associate's degrees, but the majority really is at the bachelor's degree level. So let me go to the next slide. Oh, there we go. All right, so here you can see everybody in our association. We refer to ourselves as MICU because everything in Michigan is MI. And you can see on the map over here on the left side of the screen where our institutions are located. We used to have a UP institution, Finlandia, but it sadly closed a couple of years ago. So that was very sad. You can see everybody's logos over on the right, and we really represent a broad range of institutions. So independent colleges We have tiny little institutions. I refer to some of them as teeny weeny and have decided that that's an official higher education term for the size of a college that's very small, usually under 400, is going to be the official teeny weeny group. But we have religious institutions, from Catholic institutions to non-denominational Christian institutions to the like Calvin and Hope, which are Dutch Reform. And then we have your pretty traditional liberal arts, small rural colleges like the University of Olivet and Alma are in there. We have some city institutions. So the University of Detroit Mercy, which is a comprehensive research institution right in the city of Detroit. College for Creative Studies, which is one of the best design schools in the nation if you are into art or if you have students that are into art and design. We have Walsh College, and Walsh is upper division only, so they don't have freshmen and sophomore students on campus, only juniors, seniors, and grad students. And so everybody at Walsh is a transfer student, which is kind of cool. Walsh also has, and I just learned this a couple months ago when I was digging into outcomes data, Walsh also has the third highest graduation rate for Pell students in the state. So if a student is coming in with a Pell Grant, University of Michigan Ann Arbor has the highest graduation rate, then Kalamazoo College, and then Walsh. Really interesting, excellent access institution. So you can see there's really a broad range. We've got Lawrence Tech and Kettering for those into the architecture, engineering side. And we now actually have a graduate school in our membership, the Michigan School of Psychology. So that's all master's and doctoral programs in clinical psychology. So it's a smaller institution, but it's really highly specialized. And so a lot of our schools have graduate agreements with Michigan School of Psychology so that you go right from your undergrad into your graduate programming. So here's the range of institutions. There are a lot. There are a handful that are not part of our membership. You probably have heard of Hillsdale College. They are not part of our membership. And then Kuiper, which is a small Christian institution in Grand Rapids, as well as Grace Christian. Those are not members, as well as any of the seminaries or the yeshiva. So every institution in our world needs to offer secular baccalaureate degrees, which is why, again, the seminaries would not be part of it. All right. So we often talk to students about why you would pick an independent college or university, and a couple of the main reasons are personal attention. We have a really low student to faculty ratio. Depending on the year, it's 10 to 1, 11 to 1, 12 to 1. It's really small. And so if you have students that want an institution that is going to give them really close-knit attention and help those students be successful, or if you have students that want or need a lot of a guiding hand, an independent college really is one of the best places to go. We have very generous financial aid. Like I said earlier, our institutions do not receive a state appropriation to operate, which again, you'll know why we have high sticker prices, because the delivering an education is quite expensive. But where we don't have a state appropriation to operate, we have endowment funds that are targeted to student grants. We have private funding that's targeted to student grants. And so all of that makes up really generous financial aid, so that when it comes to the actual net price of attendance, what students are actually paying, we are about on par with the public universities. And in many cases, it's a lot less. We also have really high graduation rates. I mentioned obviously Kalamazoo College and Walsh before in terms of the highest in the state for Pell students. But for most of our institutions, the student success is one of the #1 focus areas. And so the majority of our institutions, the 4-year, 5-year graduation rate is much higher than it may be somewhere else in the state. Also, success after graduation. We have many of our institutions where 95% of the graduates are either employed or enrolled in graduate school within a few months of graduating from college. So we do have a lot of guarantees on those sorts of, that sort of student success after graduation. And so something we hear often whenever we're talking with counselors is, I have so many students that would do great at a private college, but I just can't send them. It's too expensive. So let's talk about the data and talk about where I'm getting the data to show you why it's actually not as expensive as we think. Because the sticker price, I agree, it is ridiculously high. It sounds very scary. And I was mentioning to some of the MCAN team earlier, it's really on par with out-of-state tuition at some of the state universities, if that makes sense. So where do we get all our numbers? So before we show data, this is all from federally reported data to IPEDS. It's the Integrated Post-Secondary Education Data System. So what is this? These are data reports that are required for institutions to access Title IV funds. So that's Pell, pardon me, student loans, any Title IV aid. So any Department of Education funding that the institution may receive for students, you have to report to IPEDS. And what's helpful about IPEDS is the definitions are uniform across schools nationwide. And if you want to compare Michigan to another state, you can do that. So it's really the closest apples to apples comparison. Okay, also, this is the data that feeds the College Scorecard and College Navigator. And if you're using these websites, this is where it's all from. So it's really all housed in one collective space. The majority of institutions have to do it. What's helpful is it's not really survey data, it's population data. So it's everything. All right, next. Okay, college costs a lot, but probably not as much as you think. So this is why we're talking about sticker price versus actual price. So at independent colleges and universities in Michigan, 84% of undergraduates received grants and or scholarships to attend college last year. That's a lot. This is compared to 70% at public universities. So just as a reference, public universities may not need to do as much in terms of institutional aid because they have state appropriations that are subsidizing those in-state students. All right, next. 84%, that's nearly every student, but how much are these students actually receiving? The average grant for a student at an independent college in Michigan is $21,000. So this is last year's data. So this is the average amount awarded to students at independent colleges in Michigan. If we compare the average grant to public universities, that's about $11,500. So it's almost twice the amount. And again, like I said, because we're independent, all of our student aid is coming from private sources and we don't have any sort of state subsidy. Okay, for most students, the sticker price of college is meaningless. So as much as you see it's $70,000 a year, which is a good example, many of our institutions say they cost $70,000 a year. No one's paying that, or the only folks that are paying that are from families that have a lot of money. They don't even fill out a FAFSA because they know they're not going to get anything for it. And so, sure, they can pay the sticker price. But 84% of students, and in some institutions, it's 100% of students, are getting some sort of grant or scholarship. So these comparisons, so these are the price comparisons. There's a lot of information on here, but what I want to draw your attention to most, the red bars. These red bars are the sticker price for the cost of attendance. So cost of attendance, tuition and fees, room and board, books and supplies, everything, the all-in cost to go to one of our schools. And again, because this is more traditional college, this includes that housing. Most students are going to be living on campus. So you can see there's some pretty expensive schools. College for Creative Studies, $74,000. Kalamazoo College, $77,000. These seem astronomical. The next thing I want you to look at is the blue bar. That's the average price actually paid by students. It's a pretty big drop. And in most instances, it's less than half of what the red bar is. So we've got sticker prices, red. Blue bar is the average price actually paid by students. And then the gray bar is the average price for the lowest income students. And these low income students, these are most of your Pell students. So these are families with incomes below about $50,000. And the data that I have in IPEDS is actually family incomes at $48,000 and below, because that's where the definition is in IPEDS. And that number is in red. So there's a red box with white text. That's the number, the the average net price for your lower income students. So if you have students who are receiving Pell, they've got really low family income, for many of our institutions, it's pretty close to free because Those students also will get tuition guarantees from the institution. They have Pell, they've got the Michigan Achievement Scholarship. You can stack all this up and it's a lot less expensive. So let's take Albion College as an example. This is our second institution in. Sticker price all in, $71,580. But there's a giant drop down below $20,000 for the average price. And if you are the lowest income student, you're at $10,891. That's very low. The max Pell is $7,395 right now. And the Michigan Achievement Scholarship is $5,500. Add those two together, Albion College is free for those students. And that again is all in. This is tuition and fees, room and board, books and supplies, everything. So I think this is just a helpful way to visualize the differentials for most students, because while the sticker price is wildly high, because education is expensive. If you look at the out-of-state costs for our public universities, it's also wildly high because it's really expensive. But when you incorporate all of the student aid and all of the private grants that exist within the institution, for many students, it's quite affordable. We do have a few institutions that are still pretty expensive, and I want to call out Lawrence Tech as an example, and Kettering as an example, and CCS as an example. In many instances, these schools have students work during and in between semesters as part of the curriculum. So Kettering is a good example because they have a very clear co-op system where students are in the classroom for part of a semester and then working at a company for part of a semester. Because of that, students are earning a lot of money throughout the academic year, and they're able to use some of that to pay part of their education. So there's less in the grants and scholarships bucket to lower that net price, because those students, you're working as part of your program and you're getting paid. This is not an unpaid internship. This is working, co-oping, on the job, getting paid. And so several of our institutions have programs like that, where the work is integrated into the program, and thus that puts a student at a different tier for financial aid, and thus you don't need as much in private grants and scholarships. That's why those are a little bit higher, if that was a question. So I hope this visual is helpful to show that for many students, they should still apply to any school that you think that they should and they would be interested in, that would be a good fit, because you don't know what the financial aid package is until you see it. And for many of our schools, they're also willing to negotiate. For a student that they really want, you can call and you can negotiate it. I have a neighbor who has applied to college, and he's still debating where he's going to go, but he got into Kalamazoo, he got into Hope, smart kid, got into Michigan State. He also applied to Concordia St. Paul, so one of the out-of-state schools. Concordia St. Paul gave him a full ride, no cost, zero. And Kalamazoo gave him a huge scholarship where his annual cost would be less than $10,000 a year. Hope College, same thing, his annual cost was less than $10,000 a year. Michigan State gave him $0. So he would have to pay the full in-state tuition and fees and room and board at MSU, which I find fascinating. So these are just interesting comparisons, like same kid, smart kid, and some institutions are just different. And so my advice to his family was call MSU's financial aid department. If he wants to go to Michigan State, call them and see if they can negotiate, because 2 other schools want him and gave him some pretty good money. So, all right, next. So the gap between sticker price and actual price is huge. You can see that from the last graph. It's massive. And let's look at the averages. So the average overall sticker price in Michigan for a private nonprofit college or university is about $52,000 a year. But if you take the average net price that students are actually paying, that's about $23,000 a year. That's a 55% difference. Yes, it's huge. And so you think about our public universities, $23,000 a year if you take an $18,000 tuition plus $8,000 for room and board, that's about the same. It's a little bit higher, in fact. And so I think that it's helpful just to understand that the sticker price, as much as I can harp on this, the sticker price is not what the majority of students are actually paying. And so we should not dissuade a student from applying to a private college because of the cost. In many instances, the cost that people see is not accurate in terms of what students are actually paying. Okay, so this is a percentage difference between the net price for low-income students versus the sticker price. So for example, at Kalamazoo College, the net price for low-income students is 82% lower than the sticker price. Albion, 85% lower. Calvin, 65% lower. University of Detroit Mercy, 74% lower. So this is just wild. For many of your students, a private nonprofit four-year institution would be an amazing place for them. One, it's not as expensive as many people think. Two, they're getting a full wraparound support because of those smaller class sizes. And outcomes are really excellent. You're going to get more in that 4 or 5 years than you would trying, especially for a student that may have a hard time navigating a larger place. All right, let's talk about debt. This is a big one. We know debt is scary. And interestingly, it's mostly a graduate program issue, but it's still a big deal at the undergrad level for students and families looking at what borrowing really means for them. So here we go. 50% of students at independent colleges used loans last year to help pay for college. Only 50%. That also means 50% did not take loans to pay for college. Many folks think that everybody takes a loan. That is not accurate, only half. And the same is true for public universities in Michigan too. It's only half. It's not an overwhelming majority. So this is not, and this is low. It used to be up to 70% of students were borrowing. But I think that there's clearly a behavior to push against borrowing as much these days. So fewer students are borrowing. Next, the average amount of debt that students take out a year. It's about $7,000. It's not a lot. So if you're one of the 50% of students who takes $7,000 a year on average, you finish in 4 years, that's $28,000. That's less than a car loan in many instances. So yes, there are individuals and families that take out a lot more debt. In many instances, there are private loans that are not accounted for. I'm only talking about federal loans, subsidized and unsubsidized, but this is only loans from the Department of Education. And those are limited. Freshmen can only get $5,500 their first year. That's not, the idea that you can borrow everything as a student is not accurate. Parents can, but that's separate. The student themselves can only borrow so much each year. It goes up every year too, because programs do get more expensive, especially as you go into more specialized degrees. So that's why the average is 7, even though the first year limit is $5,500. Okay, so $30,000 is about the average amount of total debt upon graduation for students who use loans to help pay for college. It's less than a loan for a new car. So $30,000, I don't want to say that that is not a lot of money. That is a lot of money. But I reference the car to put it in perspective of things that lots of people also take out debt to purchase. So here is some data that we put together. It's a combination of Federal Reserve data. So the Federal Reserve collects information on everything. So the data on student loans. So this is the federal student loan portfolio. And this is also outstanding auto loan debt. So what you see tracked since 1993 is the average student loan, is average outstanding student loan. So this is federal student loan portfolio divided by the number of borrowers and total auto loan debt divided by the number of auto loan borrowers. And what's interesting is they tracked pretty closely until just after the pandemic when the price of a vehicle just skyrocketed. So now your average auto loan is, $45,000 because cars are insanely expensive now. But the average outstanding debt is about $34,000 for students. Now, this is different than the 30,000 you just saw because this is the entire federal loan portfolio divided by all the borrowers. The previous slide is the average individual debt for someone coming out with a bachelor's degree. So these things are different because the overall outstanding student loan portfolio includes graduate students, it includes individuals that have paid off the majority of their debt. So it's just a really different, they're different calculations. And I also stopped it in 2022 because they stopped collecting a lot of the data when the payments were continued to be paused. I think we'll see some more data come out of federal student aid soon because the payments have started, the payment collections have started again. Okay, next. So this is our 5-year comparison of the value of your degree versus the value of a vehicle. Now, this seems a little silly. Most people aren't looking at, the 18-year-old's not looking at a car versus college and going, I could buy a car or I could go to school. That's not really the rationale. The idea, though, is just to put it in perspective of things that cost about the same amount. So let's say for your college degree, you've got about $30,000 in debt, or you buy a new vehicle, you buy an Impala or a Malibu or a Ford Focus, and it's about $30,000 or $31,000. So your brand new vehicle in year 1 is worth $31,895. The value of your degree, the value of your degree, let's say, is $32,570. Well, where did I get that $32,570 from? That is the average starting salary for someone fresh out of college with a bachelor's degree nationally. And each year, so you see the blue lines with the little diamonds, this is the average salary for someone with a bachelor's degree right out of college. 1 year out, 2 years out, 3 years out, 4 years out, 5 years out, it jumps up. On average. And for those of you who like calculus, I love calculus, you can think about the area under this curve is the value of that bachelor's degree because it is cumulative, it aggregates. It's your salary plus the next year's salary plus the next year's salary. So you keep going up. By 5 years out, that bachelor's degree is worth $315,000. That's 11 times your initial loan. Your vehicle, though, 5 years out, is only worth 12 grand. So your vehicle is different. Your education is an appreciating asset. It's an investment in your brain, it's an investment in your life, and it's an investment in your future and your family and everything. A vehicle, instead, is not an asset. It's a consumable good. It loses value because you use it. So you buy your car, the moment you drive it off the lot, it drops in value, and then it keeps dropping. And the other thing about your car is you have to spend money to make it keep working. So again, this comparison doesn't make a whole lot of sense in terms of actual choices people are making, but it does make sense in things that cost about the same. And let's put it in perspective of what it is to invest versus to just buy something. Okay. What else should we know about net price? All right, every financial aid package is unique. So these are just averages that we're sharing. Many students receive even more grant and scholarship funding, or they may receive less. You won't know until you apply. So something to note in this is private grants through the school, state, or federal government are not included in this. This is just the average net price. So some institutions discount even further, but they're not considered in the net price calculation. Things like co-ops and paid internships, especially at engineering and design schools, provide significant income, and thus the net price at some of those institutions is often higher. So we did talk about that with Lawrence Tech, with Kettering, CCS, a couple others. But for many students, they're not going to know their unique estimated net price without applying and filling out the FAFSA. They have to file a FAFSA and have to apply to college. So if you're stopping at the door simply because of the sticker price, you're never going to know if that could have been an option for the student. All right. Will they have to pay to apply? So only 6 out of our 25 independent colleges even have an application fee, and those 6 will waive it. In many instances, they either waive it during the Michigan College Month, or you just call them and ask for a waiver, and they do. So that's helpful. Also, you know lots about the Michigan Achievement Scholarship, My Student Aid. There's lots of information here. We purchased the website takemyasstocollege.org because the Michigan Achievement Scholarship is, I know it says MAS, but it's MIAS, because how could we have something in Michigan that's not my? So you could go to the state aid website in Michigan, or you can go to takemyasstocollege.org, and it will also take you to the student aid website in Michigan. So that's just a fun one. Okay. A lot of our institutions have free tuition programs associated with the Michigan Achievement Scholarship, and they're all circled on here. Albion, Aquinas, Baker, Cleary, Cornerstone, Olivet, Madonna, Rochester, Siena Heights, Spring Arbor, University of Detroit Mercy, all have announced in the last 2 years free tuition programs associated with the Michigan Achievement Scholarship. In some instances, you need to be in the local region and the county, or in other instances, you have to also qualify for a Pell Grant. I mean, there's a lot of other nuance in there, but a lot of our institutions are showing free tuition programs associated with the Achievement Scholarship. And I think a lot of the publics have too. I'm not sure how widely shared that is for every institution. I think everyone could probably do a better job advertising their free tuition programs, but I know that a lot of four-year institutions in the state do have free tuition programs. All right. So here's my email. Feel free to contact me, and I'm happy to take some questions if you want to pop them in the chat. And I'll put my email in there too, or in the Q&A. Any questions?
Perfect. We didn't get any questions in the Q&A that I saw.
Okay.
But if anyone will leave it open for a couple minutes, in case anyone does have questions. I will say I love your example of the car purchase and the return on investment. I use that same analogy all the time of like you can purchase something that has a continual return on investment. And we sometimes think that's a really, really big deal. And then we sometimes will purchase a car and it depreciates as soon as we drive off the lot, and we don't make comparisons because it is such a different purchase, but also it makes a lot of sense in my mind how it's related. I think somebody raised their hand, but they maybe pulled it down. Oh, someone just said 30 years ago, I went to Albion for much less money than my state school. Go Brits.
That's awesome.
Any other questions?
Definitely go Brits. Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of folks don't necessarily realize how much less expensive it is, because the sticker price seems like an insurmountable amount, and you couldn't access it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, private colleges are not just for rich white kids or rich kids in general.
Yep.
That's not it.
Could you talk a little bit about what is included in that sticker price? Like when we're looking at what a sticker price is, I know we talked about this a little bit, but like how is that even determined, and why don't we just say that's not what it is, and so this is actually the net price or whatever is going to be what you pay? What is that sticker price representative of, so that people can kind of understand that disconnect?
That's a good question. So it depends on the institutions. For some institutions, it's the value. The board is like, we want people to understand the value that they get. Harvard is $70,000 a year. Columbia is $70,000 a year. Our education is just as good. Our faculty is just as good. We want people to know that that's what they're getting. So in many instances, the boards of these institutions want students to say, like, I'm getting a degree from a high achieving institution. And it's true for most of our independent, I mean, most people think private college, like you got a really good education, which is true, they do. The problem is that's not really the price of it. Sometimes it's also there because there are students who can pay that. There are a handful of
Mhm.
students whose families can afford that, and they're not going to fill out a FAFSA because they know that their income is high enough. They're not going to qualify for any state aid or any federal aid. So what's the point? And so, yes, they are going to write a check and pay that amount. In many instances, it's looking at the budget. So how much does it
Mhm.
cost to deliver the education this year? You've got your
Mhm.
faculty contracts, taxes that you've got to pay, deferred maintenance that are on the buildings. You've got to keep up your athletic fields. I mean, all of these things. And you divide that out and say, this is what we would need to bring in. And then you look at your student body and say, we have all these grants and scholarships that we have in place, whether it's an endowed fund, so that we've got to make sure that money is going out because you've got a donor that wanted to give, $5 million for grants and scholarships a year. So great, that's $5 million. You're not putting it in your operating budget, you're giving it to students as part of their financial aid package. So I think that it depends on the institution, but there's a couple different calculations that go into that.
Yeah, no, I think that's really helpful because part of what I think about too, I love your analogy of like if we want to hire kind of the top faculty in the field or whatever, there's a certain amount you'll have to pay. And so then
Yeah.
that cost of it all is calculated in. And I think sometimes as a consumer, it's like what's on the surface level can often be what we think about. And so then it feels like something's really expensive for me to go sit in a classroom, but really it's like the top faculty, and like particularly around like engineering and technology programs where they need to have the latest machinery to be
Yeah.
able to kind of keep up, or the latest computers, and kind of keep up with what's happening and on the cutting edge of like engineering, for example, that can tend to be a little more expensive. And sometimes I think it's really easy to not think about those things when we're thinking about cost of college. Which that would be
Yeah.
cool.
Are the
Okay.
majority of these scholarships merit-based? Is everyone eligible with their application, or are there separate applications? Good question. Some of our institutions have merit-based scholarships where the merit is the fact that you got accepted, because we've got some selective high achieving institutions. So in many of these instances, every student gets a merit-based scholarship that gets accepted, because it's great. You're smart enough to come here. Yes, here's a boatload of money. So that's a nice part of it. In many other instances, it depends. You can take, if the student has private scholarships, if there's a Rotary Club or something locally, you can take that anywhere. So that would be a separate application. But in many instances at our institutions, there isn't a separate application. And if they're in a demographic where there would be a separate special program, that their admissions and enrollment officer, financial aid officer that's working with them would tell them like, oh, by the way, we have this other set of scholarships for students who are studying engineering. Check to see if any of these would be something you're interested in, like a special fellowship or something like that. Yep. In many instances, they're just kind of part of the process. Yeah, absolutely. What was one other thing? You were talking about equipment. So College for Creative Studies, I was just talking with them the other day. Their labs have big machines. And if you're working with sewing machines, you're working with 3D printers, you're working with all of this cool technology, it also has to be safe. You're working in glass. So there's these giant ovens full of molten glass. You have to pay the energy bill to keep that up. There's safety protocols that are in place in all of these. And so there's just a lot of layers to operating. I mean, and this is every institution, every community college, every public university. People are like, oh, college is expensive. And you're like, yes. It's not just, professors aren't making a ton of money in any of these instances. It's just delivering all of it. And honestly, I don't think it's even fancy dorms. It's regulations. Complying with state and federal regulations is expensive. It takes people to be able to do all that reporting. Keeping things safe, Clery Act, Title IX. These are all good, important things to comply with, and they require a lot of money to comply. It's just how it is. So, yep.
All right. Any other questions?
Hopefully you encourage your students to apply to private colleges. And negotiate those financial aid packages. Always ask for more.
Absolutely.
Always.
At least
Always ask.
explore, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, always ask for more.
Janicia, if we don't have any questions, do you want to pull up the last piece about sketches?
Yes. 1 second.
Hopefully you all got the college guide too that we are grateful to MCAN for distributing. So I know that many of you may have seen that. It's on our website and it's on their website where you can see all about all of our different institutions.
Yes, and we actually have more. So if any
Ooh.
of you would want more, we have some in the office that we
Great.
could mail out. So you could pop that in the, I think the chat might
Yeah.
be disabled for attendees, but you could pop it in the Q&A or send an email if you'd like some of those. All right, Janicia, I'll hand it to you.
Yes, so these are just a few reminders about the sketches as mentioned before. So again, this recording is this webinar is available for up to 1 sketch. And if you did not request a sketch when you registered, but you are attending live, please email sketch@micollegeaccess.org with your name, the name of this webinar, Demystifying Sticker Price of Independent Colleges and Universities, and along with your PIC number. No. Okay. If you are watching this webinar as a recording, you may complete the quiz that is linked on our website to earn your sketch, and the password to do so is demystify. And again, if you are attending live, you do not need to take the quiz. Only those who are watching the recording need to take it, and it will be sketch eligible until July 24th of this year. And recording sketches will be processed within 30 days from the day you complete the quiz. Now here are just a few of our upcoming webinars. Let's see, tomorrow at noon, we are hosting a College Match and Fit Day event with Godwin Heights High School. So that is a great event to attend. If you're interested in learning more or want to register and haven't yet, you can register on MCAN's website under the Professional Development tab. And so yeah, thank you. Here is also the link to sign up for our e-news if you're not already signed up. And this is a great way to stay connected and up to date on our efforts and events and other webinars that we host as well. And this newsletter comes out every other Thursday. Yeah. Thank you everyone for attending. Hope everyone has a great day.
Thank you so much.